I so love that intro. I did it myself. Can you tell? Those were definitely not your professional pictures. Those were all taken in my foyer. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Bunny Interviews.
I'll tell you.
This is Johnny Noble. I am super tickled. For those of you who do not know who this handsome gentleman is, today is going to be a little bit of a different conversation because this is going to be less relationship and more business, but from the standpoint of creating a really great life that you can be proud of and that fits your needs and your family and just improves the quality of your life for the future. So I am tickled. He is a previous high-powered badass trial attorney turned cosmetic company owner and is knocking it out of the park. I've used your products since 2018 because I was thinking about, I already was using them whenever Fort Worth injured his knee because your oils like helped heal his skin so much post-surgery. It was phenomenal. So I know that I was already using them as we turned into 2019. So Johnny, please introduce yourself. This is Johnny Noble, everyone.
Hi, I'm Johnny Noble. We met on Twitter in 2018, I think. Right when I was getting started. And that's when I started to do a lot of promotion on Twitter and not just grow the account, but actually meet contacts and people. And I mean, that's when I got a lot of my customers right at the beginning was 2018 on Twitter.
I love it. I love it. And your products have always been just really fantastic. I remember the first time I used your face oil. I mean, my kids have smile lines. You know, I've had smile lines since I was 15, probably. And I woke up the morning after I used them the first, and I remember messaging you about it. I had no lines on my face at like 38, 39 years old after 20 years of having lines on my face at that hour of the day. I was just like, oh my God, I'm sold.
You're welcome.
So start by, tell me a little bit. I always love to ask, like, what were you like as a kid? What did you want to be when you grew up? You know, what was your upbringing like? And kind of how did you go into law initially?
I grew up in northeastern Pennsylvania, which is basically Appalachia. It was pretty in an area close to two towns called Scranton and Wilkes-Barre. It was old coal country, and family had been there for a while. It was really interesting because my mom was a professional singer, and my dad was in the bar business. He also had a corporate job, but his family had a bar going all the way back to Prohibition and before Prohibition. So I literally grew up in a bar, and it was a completely different time. I mean, it was before the internet, so I wanted to do something. I don't know what it was. I ended up going through high school, college. I worked as a waiter and a bartender a lot for a long time in Atlantic City and some other places. And then
I love Atlantic.
I had a few friends that were going. Yeah, I lived there for quite a few years on and off. It was it was entertaining, but I wanted to get from there. There was just too much degeneracy and drugs and just not the lifestyle I was looking for. So I ended up going to law school because I had friends in front of me, and you know, this is back in a day where you kind of had to choose some job or profession, or, you know, maybe go into a family business. This is before, you know, you could be an internet guru at anything. So it was a completely different time. It's not what I wanted to do growing up. I for a time in my life, I either wanted to be a veterinarian or a chef. And and I never did either. I dabbled close to both of them because I've worked on farms and things like that, and obviously I worked in the restaurant business. But I ended up going into law school, and I mean that dictated the next 25 years of my life, basically. So, and then that brought me right up to when I started to do this.
Wow. How soon before you ended your law career and started Noble Body, what was kind of the run-up time on that? What did that look like? What was your first inkling?
I was law for, I was close to, it was approaching 20 years, and I had 2 little kids at the time, and I was getting really burned out on it because I had done so much, and I was just getting tired of the whole scene, and I could see all this political bullshit starting to come into the courtrooms, even in civil and contract cases, and I was hearing that from a bunch of different attorneys, especially with some of the younger judges. So it was really getting more difficult and frustrating, and I was going through some issues at home with my now ex-wife, and it was just a very complicated time. But I was a partner in a firm for almost 10 years. That was the top of my career, and I just hit the point where I decided I was going to do something else, and I didn't even know what it was at the time. I obviously had some skill sets and talents, but I wanted to get away from the law, and I wanted to create something that I could be proud of that felt real, if that makes any sense, because the law is billing hours on a sheet, and I was a high paid gun to fight over people's money, basically, is what I did in construction projects. And I burned out on it, and one day it was around 2012, I had an epiphany. I sucked it up and did it for a few more years, and I officially quit practicing law, I think, in 2015. And that's when I started working on the cosmetics angle. Yeah, it was it feels like a long time ago now. It's really not that much.
But that's impressive.
Well, it was a tough time because I had never gone through a period in my life where I wasn't productive and working in some capacity. So, I found myself in a position where it's like, I want to do something, but I don't know what I'm doing. I have to go back through some educational process, and I have to figure all this out. And, I would have done 1,000 things different if I can go back in a time machine. That's not how it works. So it was kind of a harrowing time mentally, because I was working on all these ideas, and I thought I was on the right track, but you have no idea until you test it in the market to see if people are going to buy your products or like your products or any of that. And I mean, I've talked to many people that are in the industry or close to the industry, and they say things like, I can't believe you're still around. Wow. Which I agree. I can't believe it. Yeah.
That's pretty incredible. I love that. How old are your kids now? They were young then. So they're like high school?
My oldest is a freshman in college, and he just got a speeding ticket. And my youngest graduated.
That is relatable.
He's watching. He might be watching. My youngest is a senior. Yeah.
I love that.
My youngest gets out of high school this year. Actually, this month.
That's awesome. Well, and I know from just our interactions on Twitter that, you have been able to be really involved with your kids' upbringing, probably more so even as much work as something like building your own business like this and manufacturing and shipping and all of that's involved, have you been able to spend more time with them and build better connections with them because of it, and be a better man in the house?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, the divorce obviously had a huge impact on that. But at the time when I was getting divorced and doing this, it did give me a lot more flexibility in my schedule. But because before that, I would miss so many things because I just can't leave to go to a baseball or a soccer game at 3:00 in the afternoon. And,
Right.
you know, my oldest son plays college baseball. They have a playoff game tomorrow at 3:00. I'm 100% going to his game tomorrow. So, I mean, you know, I might be working at 9:00 at night on a Thursday or Friday or 5 in the morning on a Tuesday, but it doesn't matter as long as everything gets done. It's a different type of schedule than having to go to a law office or a courtroom. It's a completely different life.
I love that. I love that. That's wonderful. What was your first product?
It's a little bit embarrassing. I started in their company first that was called Scrub Junkies, and I had sugar and salt scrubs. That's what I started with, because they're kind of, yeah, sugar. Those are sugar scrubs. I had salt scrubs too, and I came out at first with I think I had 6 or 8 products. But while I was doing that, I was working on other formulas. I was working on the face oil actually when I was launching that. And then I thought to myself, well, the name of my company already doesn't make any sense because I called it Scrub Junkies and now I have a face oil that I want to sell. Yeah. And it was just shit, all is just wrong. And I just scrapped it and I started over and you know, started the process again with, you know, coming up with a good company name and a good branding and doing all that. And that was the birth of Noble Body. And that started in about early 2016. And then that's when I branched out into other types of products, like beard oil, hair oil, face oils, different types of body scrubs like the ones that I perfected those formulas around that time. Those were my earliest products that I thought were done and market worthy, probably late 2015, early 2016. And then I just kept going from there.
That's incredible. Now you have men's products and you have women's products. So what is the women's face oil your top selling for women? Or what is the top seller that you have or your best seller?
My best selling product is face oil. Still, I think this one.
Yeah, the original is amazing.
Yeah, it's a great formula, and that's a good story behind that. I think this one is catching up the body oil that you talked about.
It's phenomenal.
Those took me a long time. When I was doing the Scrub Junkies thing and I started working on face oil formulas, I was studying some of the ones, and there weren't a lot at the time, but one of them was it was called Oleo Luso. It was a woman named Linda Rodan who launched it in it was like around 2008, I believe. And I think that was the first commercial face oil product on the market, like a true face oil formula. And then she had a lot of success with that. It was like a one product company for a while. And I saw that actually Estee Lauder bought her company, and then they've already scrapped it like 2 years later. So it just shows you the fickle nature of the cosmetics industry, because I mean that product was super popular and now it doesn't even exist, I don't believe. But when I was doing that, realized there's not one true men's face oil formula on the market. And I kind of kept researching and looking if I was ever going to find anything, and I never really did. And that's how it ended up being called the original face oil for men, which is trademarked because it is the first one. So because of all that, that was one of the first products that I promoted most heavily, starting on Twitter and other social media forums, obviously, but mostly Twitter at that time. And I got a lot of loyal customers that are still with me from way back in 2018.
I love it. I love that. And you are so great at nurturing the relationships of the customers that you have with your loyalty programs, with your, I always get tickled because, a lot of times you'll write a little note, or someone will, to me whenever, on my invoice. And I just love that. I don't care if it's not you. It's the fact that it's a thought and it's part of the business practice, and it just makes that personal touch just feel all the more special. So I love it.
Yes. To me, in this industry, one of the things that's most important, I think, is customer happiness, retention, loyalty. Because if you get a customer and you keep them happy with your product and you fulfill your promise every time, then they're going to stay with you. And some customers are going to leave. Obviously, they find something else they like or whatever the issue is. It happens. But to me, the most important thing is customer satisfaction over the long term. And obviously acquiring new customers through word of mouth and everything else, but it's just super important. And I think it's one of the most important things that I've focused on. So far I'm obviously doing other things all the time, but that is one of the biggest issues.
So initially it was just you, I assume. At what point did you start to realize that you needed to add either administrators, assistants, other hands in the shop?
Well, I started another company too with a partner called Sleek Ink, the tattoo company.
Oh, yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, we launched that in 2019. We started, so I was working on all this, and then my partner approached me about something, and I gave him 10 different ideas of different cosmetic products that could be applied to different markets, and one of them was to the tattoo industry. So we came up with a pretty slick idea and name, and we started working on it in April of 19. I think we launched in July of 19, so it was that quick. So that was the time that I started to add other people, and that was 2019 was when I learned how to actually take products into a higher level manufacturing process at they're called CGMP manufacturing facilities, which means Certified Good Manufacturing Practices, which is an FDA approval process. And I learned how to do all that in late 2019. So that was the kind of the tipping point where I took everything to the next level, because I had to. I mean, one of the best in those early days was like 860 kilograms. I mean, that's, I think, almost a ton of product.
Wow.
Just to give you an idea of the scaling process. And in the last year and a half, I got everything into that same manufacturer. I'm really happy with that manufacturer. I also have a good relationship with a fulfillment company that sends a lot of the products out. When orders go in, they get fulfilled out of the fulfillment company. So that was a huge step. That takes a lot off. I'm spending a lot of time now doing things like this and working with social media marketing people. Like I told you, I did another podcast on Monday with a marketing guy that I use here in Phoenix. So it just never stops. I mean, I know I have good products and, you know, good formulas and all that, but it's like you just have to keep pushing outwards, or people will forget that you exist. It's just
Right.
the nature. It's like the dating scene. If you're not constantly, if you're dating and looking for a husband or wife or a girlfriend, you have to be hustling at that same level, or you'll be sitting home alone eating French fries, pretty much.
It's true. You'll be Netflix and chilling all by yourself.
Yeah, that's no fun.
No, that's not fun for anyone. Oh, I know that your kids, I mean, I think it's very cool that you even have told me that, you know, your sons are involved. You kind of test products on them. They seem to have a genuine interest, at least one or both of them, in your company as well, which I love, because my father has always had his own kind of business, whether it was while he was also working a corporate job, or just like you're doing, standalone, with the intent that it's a generational business, something that involves everyone. And that's just so near and dear to my heart. So how involved are one or both of your kids? You know, I know that with them out in baseball and stuff, they probably have to use a lot of the oils to keep their skin healthy. But what does their feedback look like?
They're both really into it, and both of them are my harshest critics as far as fragrance and quality of formulas. If something doesn't come out right, because I went through a lot of testing with new products and new fragrances, and all the fragrances are natural. I don't use a lot of the toxic stuff you'll find in a lot of products, but they are incredibly harsh when I don't get something right. So it keeps me on my toes, especially my younger one. My oldest has been writing marketing emails for both companies for a while now, so he's really into it. And whenever his baseball season ends, which could be soon as Friday or Saturday, or it could be a month or two out, he said he wants to get right back into it for the summer. We talked about it yesterday. My youngest is really into it, but he's more into some other things. He's actually really into cars, and he wants to go to school to learn how to be not just a mechanic, but into diagnostics and buying and selling vehicles. Like he's really into different types of cars, which is pretty cool. He's only 18. So we'll see where he takes that. But yeah, they're both into it. During COVID, we were spending a lot of time together because they were doing remote school, and I was working on a new beard oil fragrance, and it was my COVID project. I took it was like 6 months, but I kept testing it on them, and it came out really good. I came up with a totally different, unique fragrance for the beard oil, and my friends here that have beards just rave about it. They use it all the time, but it came out really cool, and they helped me a lot because they have really good noses. So it was a fun time.
I love that. That makes me so happy, and I love that they're both involved. Very cool.
Yes.
Now,
yeah, it's great.
Is this one your newest one, this Evolve Skin Repair?
Yes.
I love this.
I just launched that in August or September, I think. And there's a good story behind it. I was hired by and that's another thing. I was hired by other companies to make products, to manufacture products for them, because I know the process now. So I had done a product for a company that sells maternities to women that have had or are having babies. And the company was strictly focused on that. And I was asked to do a stretch mark product. This is going back a year and a half or 2 years. So I came up with a formula, and then they sold the company, and I was asked by the buyer of the company to do the formula again. And I told them that I'd like to tweak the branding a little bit, and I was going to tweak the formula. So at the same time, I did the formula for Noble Body too, and I put a different name and branding on it, but the formula is great. I spent a lot of time on that. I made a lot of improvements on it, from just strictly the stretch marks to other things. There's a lot of great stuff in there. Yeah, it took me a while. It was a good one. I use it every day.
Well, and what strikes me about it, especially because I'm 45 years old, even though I've always been very fair skinned, I haven't been out in the sun a lot, anything like that. So therefore, everything damages me. I think more so than those with a beautiful olive complexion. But, so I love that there's something in your lineup that's specific to repairing that kind of thing. So I would think that a lot of people in my age demographic would really just be so drawn to this product in particular.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, that's the next product I think I'm going to do ad campaigns for, just because it's more laser focused on different groups, people that either have specific or specific different age categories. I think it'll be better for me to be able to target those markets, because it is a great formula. And I just did a small batch of it. In the manufacturing, I think it was a small batch. It was like maybe 600 units, 800 units, something like that, just to test. Yeah, yeah. I've been here too. I didn't even do a box. I didn't even do a box for it yet, because the whole design process, and I didn't know if it was going to be worth it. But the early reception on it is pretty good, so I'm going to push it a little further and then see how it goes. And if I have to put it back into manufacturing, then I'll a really cool box, because I take a lot of pride in the design and aesthetics for the packaging. I think it's important in this industry. And I know the debate out there about, oh, you don't need a logo, you don't need a company, all this other nonsense. Well, go ahead and try to sell cosmetics without a logo or a good brand, and you'll see is exactly how I look at it.
Exactly. Now, how much has Noble Body specifically evolved? Because I've seen changes. Of course, we always update websites and things of that nature, but have there been many changes in the brand or the way you present the brand over the years, or has it stayed pretty true?
It's constantly evolved is the good word. For a while I had there was a tagline on the site and on some of the packaging. I don't think it's on there anymore. The tagline was "Embrace your evolution," and it was keeping in mind the evolution of a brand over time. But not only that, I came back to realize in some moment later that it was actually an evolution of me too, as a person, as a company owner, as a founder. And it really told me a lot about a brand and a company, because what I think happens, and you see this across the board with any company that's successful over time, is you're going to see changes in logos and branding and colors and everything else. Like Fanta has been around for a bazillion years. They just changed their logo again. I mean, that's a good example, but there's many. Pepsi did the same thing recently. So I have tried to evolve the brand and make everything better every time I had an opportunity to. I ran out of men's face oil boxes, so I redid the box and, you know, added some things, and I had to change the ingredient list because I actually improved the formula too. So there's a point where you have to stop, but I think the mantra I always have is, if I can make it better, changing it too much that people will get turned off, I'm going to make improvements wherever I can, both in aesthetics, packaging, and formulas. I mean, that's been my philosophy. And yeah, it's definitely an evolutionary process that's going to constantly keep changing or evolving. No question about it.
I love that you are, I mean, it sounds silly to say, but I love that you truly are so hands-on with the product. I mean, you are constantly testing things. You are constantly testing fragrances and formulas. I love that even if the manufacturing has kind of outgrown, you know, your original, you know, plan, that you've stayed very grounded as the foundation of the company and the products, because you can tell in the products that they are much loved, for lack of a better way to say it, you know, that it's not just being run through kind of a system and of unseen people.
Yeah, and in this modern era, I mean, I wasn't kidding when I said I wanted to create something great. I could call it was real, that I could touch, because I was so burned out on just the whole field of practicing law that I wanted to do something that I could really feel viscerally. And you know, what's better than the aesthetics and the health and the beauty of skincare and the whole cosmetics industry? I mean, it ties directly in with, you know, whether or not you're going to get a girlfriend or a boyfriend. Because let's face it, the people that look the best are going to get the best prospects. That's just the way it goes. And in a modern era of big companies that don't give a flying shit about anything except profits, which we see every single day, I wanted to be different, and that's a good way to differentiate myself. And these are thoughts I've had years ago. Like, now it's, you know, it's coming to fruition. But in the big cosmetics companies, you have this top-down hierarchy approach where they say, well, let's do something with this ingredient and call it this and target it at the 49-year-old women crowd. And, you know, it's all impersonal and it's mostly nonsense. Whereas I came in as, you know, kind of from a guerrilla warfare standpoint, coming up into the industry to try to see what areas that I could target products at based on what I knew at the time, which is constantly expanding. But yeah, it's a completely, they're two completely different worlds. And I am seeing a trend of smaller companies and mid-sized companies and startups that are truly focused on the human experience with the customers, and not just some nameless, faceless giant corporation that doesn't care about their customers. And it's refreshing when I see it with other companies too. And I usually spend some time studying what they're doing and how they're doing, that I could implement some of the things in my companies.
Yeah, that's a good lesson. How is your business acumen? Because going from corporate trial attorney to, you know, business owner is a big jump. So what are some of the best tidbits and business advice that you feel like you've learned through this process?
Well, there's a lot. I mean, yeah, for me, I mean, I think a lot of it is, there's so many issues. It's like, let's say you get to a point where you have viable products and viable markets and you're confident in your products. I mean, then, you know, a lot of it is just getting your products into the hands of the right people and the right marketing campaigns. And, you know, on the side of that is it depends on your industry, but, you know, in cosmetics, you have to have a good team of people, you know, from the legal side, like trademarks and things like that. I have one of my best friends has helped me immensely with trademark issues and things like that, because we've had to trademark so many things and fight off some other copycat companies and things like that.
Wow.
You know, so you need an attorney or two. Yeah, I have one going on right now and with a company in Canada that basically duplicated the name of Noble Body and added another name on it, and they tried to trademark it here in the United States. We shot that down pretty quickly. Yeah, I'm not even going to say the name of the company because it's my arch enemy. So I'm about to battle with them a little bit in Canada because I don't want them to have it at all now. After that, so you know, and then you need the business management people. But in cosmetics, I mean, you have to have fulfillment and you have to have manufacturing. And I've consulted with, I'm pretty close with one chemist formulator that actually has done very high level perfumes and cosmetic products for athletes and stars and things like that. He's in Orange County, California, but he works with my manufacturer here in Arizona. You know, so you constantly have to expand out and have people that are going to cover things for you. It is the biggest lesson, because I'm not a control freak, but it's like I'm so accustomed to getting things done myself that I fall into that trap of, well, I can do it, but your time might be spent, you know, better doing other things. So that's a hard lesson for me that I'm still learning, but it's nice to pass things off to other people. You know, like if you want to do a couple email campaigns, I talk to my son and I say, here you go, have fun, you know, and I don't have to worry about it. Yeah, I know he can handle it. So it's the biggest lesson for me is being able to pass things off to other competent people that you know you can trust.
That is excellent advice, and I think that's probably, like you said, some of the hardest. That's one of the hardest lessons to learn in entrepreneurship. Period.
Letting go.
Yeah. So
it's like a break.
Oh yeah, exactly. The website is noble-body.com. Men's and women's products, face oils, body scrubs, skin or beard oils. It's all phenomenal. I've never tried anything that I haven't absolutely gone crazy and loved. So you're doing a phenomenal job, and I so appreciate you coming on. I'm also very excited because it's almost Mother's Day, and you're about to do a big Mother's Day sale launching tomorrow, I think.
I think it's teed up for tomorrow morning. Yeah, so we can get it there in time because Mother's Day is 10 days out
like a week and a half
as of tomorrow, I believe.
So
yeah.
I hope that that's a big success, and I'm going to be sharing that information with all of my followers and friends also. But I am so appreciative because even though this is a little bit outside of my norm, I just find you fascinating, and I find the evolution of your business success fascinating, and you're just such a great personality and a neat person to talk to. So I genuinely appreciate you coming on and talking to me today. I know that you do not have time for this, but thank you for making time, and that's just amazing.
I love it. Thank you. Yeah, your world is a little different than what I do too, but there is some overlap of what we do, so it does make sense. And the fact fact that you've watched me from the very beginning. The beginning of 2018 was really the moment where I thought, okay, this is it. You're either going to make it or break it, and this is where it starts. And that's where it began. And you were there, so you've seen all the changes in the evolution of the brand and the products and everything else, and all the website changes we've done. And yeah, it's been an interesting process, but I couldn't have done it without people like you. It's really that simple.
Well, it really is the best stuff out there. I mean, it's just amazing skincare, and I'm sure the beard oil is equally wonderful. We just don't have a need for it. And apparently there's a...
Yeah, I was going to say you should try the beard oil. You don't want to try my beard oil?
I hope to never need your beard oil.
Me too. I hope that you don't. That would not be good.
Everyone follow John on Twitter. Your Twitter handle is Johnny Noble Body, correct?
Yes, that's it, because everything else was taken and I didn't want to mess with it. So it's Johnny Noble Body.
I love it. And noble-body.com. Everyone check that out and watch my Twitter feed for tomorrow's Mother's Day launch of his sale. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to Johnny Noble, and thank you for sharing your business success and information and advice. I appreciate you being here.
I appreciate it too. Thank you, Bunny.